I think the thing is, you can talk about whatever you want on stage, you can say whatever you want, but you have to be prepared to deal with the backlash of whatever fucked up shit you're talking about. Like, and I think so. I think if you want to, I don't know, you have to be. If you're going to say something, you have to be prepared to back it up or apologize, depending on what you said and how much you believe in it. But you're the one who's going to say it, so you're going to have to deal with the it's a free speech thing. People are like, you can't say anything these days. It's like, no, you can still say stuff, but there's just more consequences. So that's what I think. I think you can say anything you like, but you're going to be the one to deal with it if it goes pear-shaped, yeah. So I think, I haven't watched Chappelle's special because I just think it was going to make me mad. I think that like trans people are one of the most like marginalized groups of people and have like really bad suicide rates, really bad like trans Black women have the highest murder rate of any group. And I just think what's the point of shitting on them for an hour? Like how does that make like how does that make you like how does that make your life better? Like I think I was gonna watch it and then I heard from a few people it's just not like there's not many jokes in it too, which I think that's the most offensive thing to me. Like if you're gonna talk shit, you better make it fucking funny. Like you can't just talk if you're gonna get paid however many millions for a Netflix special, comedy special, make it, and it's going to be really like harmful to a particular group of people, make it really funny. Like I just think, and that's why I think the audience ratings is like it's the same as people tanking like Amy Schumer's like stuff on movies or whatever.
The Black special on Netflix, that's what they did it with that.
Yeah, same thing as people tanking that before it's even come out or whatever. And I think people supporting Chappelle because they're like, yeah, he's like, speaking his truth or whatever, like they haven't watched it yet or whatever, they might not have even watched it. But I think, people love to support people who are doing harmful stuff, like, Donald Trump and stuff. Like, I think it's, I don't know. I probably should watch the special, but.
Yeah, I think you should. I think you certainly should because I've watched it. I mean, I'm not part of the LGBTI community, so I can't speak to it from being on the inside out. I think, as is usually the case, whatever perspective someone has, normally the Twitter artsy and the bloggers, most comedy sets don't transpose well into the written word. Without the sideways look and the wink of the eye or the whatever. It doesn't. I'm not saying that Dave should. Dave, like I know him, Mr. Chappelle should. But I do also think, obviously the stats that you're talking about to do with the trans community are very real, completely 100% without. But what I don't quite see is Ricky Gervais making a joke about Caitlyn Jenner being a bad driver actually adds to that. So I actually thought that was a genius joke because the reason that was a genius joke was he was actually saying he was actually being sexist towards women and including Caitlyn Jenner in that group.
Right.
He was basically saying you're a woman and you've just killed somebody in a car. That's not so good for women driving stats. But people again took offense because it was. I just don't think there's these protected groups. Well, I don't think there should be these protected groups because I've said this for a long time. And for people who've listened to my podcast, I'm sorry if I'm about to repeat myself, but if you give me the rules, I'm actually okay to live by the rules. If you give me the rules, I mean, within reason, unless they're ridiculous or against any kind of freedoms we have. If you give me the rules, I'm a nice person. I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. I don't want to make someone feel bad. But at the moment, we're going through this time where, for example, the representation one in films and having Lin-Manuel Miranda having to apologize for In the Heights, etc., etc., etc. I'm like, if that's the path we're going to go, right? So only trans people can tell trans jokes. If that's the rules, that's fine. That means women stop telling jokes about men, lesbians stop telling jokes about straight men. White people stop telling jokes about Mexicans. Mexicans stop telling jokes about white people. It's like what we can't do is have a sector of society that says leave them alone, but everyone else is free range. We either do that for everyone or we do it for no one. And I think you said freedom of speech. We don't really have freedom of speech in New Zealand like the Americans claim, but that's sort of what it is to me. It's an freedom of speech with strings attached is not freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And I'm okay. I'm okay going down that path if that's what society decides. What I struggle with is I don't even want to talk about what group it is, because there is good reasons for some groups to identify themselves as being more at risk. But to try and pull a group out and say, this is the untouchables, but everything else, that feels strange to me. And I don't know how that would work.
Yeah, well, I think it's just the concept, like punching up and punching down.
Yeah, totally.
In comedy. Yeah. So like there's a difference between I guess like you said, Mexican people making fun of white people, like a group who's been oppressed by another group making fun of the oppressors. There's a difference between that when it's like, and then a like multi-millionaire making fun of, like, making jokes, because I think there's like studies and stuff that have shown that like that kind of, like, even though it's not like kill trans people, like it can still lead to violence and like negative views and stuff on trans people, which can become harmful in the real world. So it's a difference between this very, very rich and famous man telling his views on Netflix, rather than like one person on their personal Twitter being like, Dave Chappelle hurt me. Like, it's just there's a big power imbalance. It's when the power is way off, that's the thing that, like, and I think some people think having consequences is the same as like getting the shit beaten out of you because you're trans. Like, some people think people telling you did a bad joke and you should say sorry is the same as like like physical real world consequences happening to you, rather than people telling you you're a dickhead. Like, I think that's the thing, is people who've never kind of faced pushback before are like outrage and really playing the victim hard out. Like,
I don't want to spend the day talking about Dave Chappelle and defending Dave Chappelle. No. But many could argue he has been that person when he grew up as a as a black kid, having to carry his books to school, and so he's a minority as well. And then you kind of go, if he's a minority but he's a millionaire, does that? So I actually read an article that talked about Dave Chappelle's white privilege. And because basically once you get wealthy, your blackness disappears. I'm like, well, hang on. If we are told constantly about my lived experience. His lived experience has been basically a take. I mean, I'm saying again, I'm not sitting here to defend Dave Chappelle, but but I ingest this stuff on a daily. I love it. This is what I'm into. He was, if you read the books, if you read his interviews, if you see what was done to him when he got into the industry, he was taken advantage of. He's faced all those things as well, but now because he's gone to Netflix and made 60 million for his first 3, all of a sudden all of that means nothing, and he's a wealthy down puncher. I mean, I'm not the subject of any of those jokes, so it's hard. I'm not trying to, but because this is what I do, I talk about things that are going on in the world. I talk with people like yourself who are better informed than me. I'm like, as a fucking moron sitting at the bottom of the world, I'm like, I don't get it. Like, I don't. Here's one, and we weren't going to talk about this, but because we brought him up, I went and grabbed it. Here's one here. I'm sure everyone's heard about Patton Oswalt.
I saw this.
Taking a photo with Dave Chappelle, wrote a lovely comment on it about his friend of 25 years, and then Patton Oswalt got jumped on for being a transphobe because he took a photo with a transphobe, and he apologized to the community for actually then taking a photo with his friend of 25 years. And posting it. That to me, and again, I can't, I'm not going to speak to the idea of I understand, but that to me seems ludicrous. I mean, it's not like he was saying, here's my friend Dave Chappelle, fuck you trans community. He was like, here's my friend of 25 years, Dave Chappelle, period. That's the end of my sentence.
No,